Sundays don't make Sundays so shiny. If it is so good, then our brothers and sisters don't come to church. So make it a little bit kind of drizzling, and so don't let anyone to go to outing, and don't let anyone to enjoy the nature. So everyone come to church. Today looks like kind of really working that way. Church is full. Isn't that nice? I think afternoon will be okay, so we can go for coffee. Anyway, yesterday we had a really wonderful Holy Day celebration. It was kind of beautiful, and we had, I think, more than 100, near to 150. I don't know, I didn't count. I hope some of you were here. Probably you did your holiday observing in your home. It is kind of really important we observe this kind of holidays. Heavenly Parent established for us, the true parents really established for us. It really allows us to deepen our faith and bring that into our own personal life. So please observe whatever the holidays we have, so that we can really rooted into our faith. And also, today is kind of very, very special day. Do you know why? Do you know what? Today we are finishing our Holy Ground Revival Tour. Today is the 43rd day. And I feel I was in that first day in San Francisco. I feel like only like almost 2 weeks passed from that point. But it's finished. It's finishing today. It's the 43rd day. And yesterday, while we were talking about that, Rani was saying that we have to really admire Dr. Balkam. He did that. And also, not only Dr. Balkam, there were several other brothers and sisters who did this tour for completely, totally 43 days. And we have one of our brother who started initially he planned for 3 weeks, Mr. Nelson, Dennis Nelson's husband. And he was planning to come, I think, until Baltimore, then come back to home. Then while he was traveling, then he felt it's kind of really great program initiated by headquarters and True Parents and God, and he felt he almost like received a lot of revelations, and again he felt like a New Jersey community is the largest community in the whole nation, and if there is nobody from New Jersey community totally joined, that's not a good representation for us. That's why he felt he have to continue that. That's why he continued. And also, anyway, I felt that was a great determination he did. Let us thank him. And several of you also attended. Then many times I received good testimonies from you. Like Machiko-san sent me a very good testimony yesterday. Mr. Benz was always sending me almost every day while he was on tour and sending testimonies. I heard he was so excited that he was kicked out of Guam. Not that he was making too noise. That's why Dr. Balkam chose a Bruce come. I think it was not because of that. And he was a person who, when our one bus was too full, then Dr. Balkam has to choose some people who can be in a smaller van. That's why he was the first one, and I can understand why sometimes leaders choose that way. People won't get negative, people won't get hurt, and that way he was chosen first, not because of his loud noise. I like that noise.
Not my loud
Yankee Stadium, and many things. Did you remember why you joined? And again, after remembrance, then we are supposed to be revived. Are you revived? Yes. Wow. That's really good. Revived. And now, yesterday, I was in a conference call with Dr. Balgam and Dr. Tim and all other district pastors. And Dr. Balgam mentioned that this revival tour, he reminded us all these themes we had, and this is to remember the very reasons we joined and revive ourselves and again reimagine for our future and reimagine the way we are going forward. And then we can, and today I want to talk about that. And again, as you know, past several weeks, we were talking about the restoration through blessing. The blessings we have received or we are receiving from God and true parents, and the restoration we are going through that, or the restorations we achieved through those blessings. And as I was reflecting on those aspects, like the rebirth experience in blessing and restoration of God's lineage and establishing a continuous lineage afterwards, I felt this reimagination of our future life or reimagination of what we are going to be in the future is coming after this. This blessing we have received, and blessing in the sense, I'm not just talking about that only one-time ceremony we had. I'm talking about the blessings we are receiving every day in our life, as well as the holy blessing marriage ceremony, and everything we receive from God is supposed to be a continuity. And here in today's scriptural passage, scriptural reading, we read that, we heard that the members of the Unification Church are guiding the youth to establish, guiding the young generation to establish the standard of blessed land of Canaan. And actually that speech is Father given on 1986. And probably some of you were young members that time. I wasn't a member that time. I didn't met the church that time. But it says, whoever were members that time, they were trying to meet young people and then trying to show them what is the standard of living in a restored land, or in a new land, or in a new world is creating. That is actually, when you look into the history, you can see all religious movements came with that purpose. When Judaism came, when Abraham was chosen by God, then guided by God to a new land, then Abraham was told by God that you have to leave everything behind and follow me absolutely. Then he was begging with God, can I take this, can I take this? Finally, anyway, God allowed him to take his nephew. But in a way, he was establishing a new standard. And then, from that moment, he created a new founders envisioned. It did not really happen exactly the way Jesus envisioned. Christianity grew as one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest religion of the world. And still that standard Jesus envisioned, that generation of people, that nation Jesus envisioned, which is keeping that standards and which is keeping that absoluteness, it did not really last for a long time. Maybe in the beginning it was there, but when we look at the history, look at the state of Christianity now, it was able to brought tremendous victories for the world, tremendous development in the world, but not exactly the standard Jesus wanted to create. That's why when Reverend Moon was speaking, Father Moon was speaking to American audience in 70s, was saying, I'm telling you, I'm here to give a new hope for Christianity, a new future for Christianity. This is what you have to follow. Something like that. And here we are. We talk about we were recently, when we were having this Holy Ground Revival tour, and we are again kind of encouraged by our national president and our continental director to think about the standards where we join this movement or this church, and think about and revive that in our life and reimagine a future where we can have that in our life, in our social life, and in the life of the whole world in a practical way, in a practical sense. And that's why I want to really think about that. I really want to see how we can establish that. And in our passage, today's reading passage, you saw that in order to live a blessed life, or in order to, it started like this in terms of your book 10, it says, regarding the final purpose of our life, the question is not whether we are able to meet God, or whether we are able to meet Messiah one time in our life. But it is about the question is about how much we are able to live a life with God. How much we are able to live a life with the standard the Messiah asking us to do. How much we are living that in today, in our life. It is not about we met the Messiah in sometime in 60s, or sometime in 70s, or 80s, or 90s, or whatever the time. It is about how much we are able to live that standard Messiah is asking us, and how much we are able to live a life which God really wants us to live. And as people who learn a lot of Bible, a lot of divine principle, we know what is the purpose of our life. phone to God, isn't it? But there is a huge kind of concept in, especially in Christianity, that God is almighty, God is all-powerful, God is everywhere, and God is a God of grace and unconditional grace. God doesn't need anything from us, and God is always self-sufficient and satisfied. And in that way, we can just receive and receive and receive. Then God is just happy giving, unconditionally giving. And do you think that works? And that doesn't work. And God gives us what is the purpose of our life. And when God said that, I want to be happy, then later, after several passages and several, in Bible, it is, after several books, in Deuteronomy, God gives us like so many standards of our life. And God needs those kind of standards in our life. God is unconditionally loving us, but in order to feel that love, it is like, oh, welcome. I love that. A relationship is always reciprocal. Like we need to have given, receive relationship. It can never be one way. If it is one way, that's not a relationship. It's just receiving and receiving, and in a sense, you can say it is like you are stealing and running away. And we are supposed to return back, or even when it is a small baby, we are like expecting something. Can be just a smile or just a movement of a baby. Something we have to go forward. And that's what God also needs. And here, Father says, as well as Bible also, everywhere we can see that God wanted to have that absolute standard in human world. And God understands that takes time, but that need our step. Need each and every individual's cooperation and step going forward. And then when God sees that God's children is trying to live a life with God by responding to God's guidance, by responding to God's request of living a life of standard or good standard, that's where God is seen. That's where God gets happy. God is not just enjoying like, okay, I'm giving unconditional love, but my children, they don't even want to acknowledge there is a God. No, that's not the way. God at least wants us to say that, I acknowledge you, God, and you are giving me this unconditional love, and you are giving me, God, you are giving me a chance to come back to you. And God, you are giving me a chance to see who am I. When we acknowledge that, when we acknowledge our relationship with God, that's where God can feel that joy. Otherwise God cannot feel. Otherwise God is a God of grief, and God is a God of bitter sadness. And here we talk about past several weeks, we talk about blessing and all restoration and our rebirth experience. This all, even rebirth experience also can be one-time experience. And I mentioned to you, I think probably on Easter or one Sunday, I mentioned that with that Pentecostal experience, people can feel after some time, people won't even feel anything if they don't keep that relationship with God. It has to be kind of wedding marriage rings, we are promising to God that God, I'm taking this person as a person you are giving to me, as your embodiment of you, and I am taking this person as if I am receiving God in my life. And me and Rani had a Catholic Church wedding ceremony also. During that, I remember the pledge we are taking each other. It says that I will walk with you until my end of my life, even if I'm sad, and even if I'm upset, even if I'm angry, and I will never go away from you. I will try to restore that, and I'm just trying to translate my best English. It's not exactly what I'm saying, we are taking in our local language. And that was something kind of really moving experience. And that same thing we are taking, we are receiving, we all together stand in front of God. Then we are telling to God, right in front of two parents, when two parents are kind of blessing us, we are taking that same oath. And here, only one difference is that we are taking that pledge for eternity. And in that Catholic Church wedding, after our blessing, it was like until the end of our life. Anyway, I think they were meaning that until the death. Or anyway, this eternity means when we take our pledge, blessing time, it is even beyond our death. And but many times I feel like many of us are blocked in something which we don't even want to think about, that pledge we give in front of God. Then we feel it like, okay, I did that. That was my condition in front of God. That was my condition. I promised to Messiah. That's it. Messiah is not happy with that. They are not expecting that. And God is not happy with that. God doesn't want that. Sometimes in India we have a term called dead marriages. Maybe you understand, dead marriage, weddings, which means people are still in marriage, they never get into divorce, but no relationship. They don't even talk each other. Sometimes they live in separate rooms, and just for the sake of children, or just for the sake of their relatives, or sometimes they don't want to show to their parents that, okay, we are divorced. Then when we are divorced, parents are kind of unhappy, sometimes children are unhappy, that's why they just say, okay, just stay together. I know even if I go to another man or another woman, still it is going to be same, then why do I have to? And that kind of feeling. And that's why we become like a numb, and we become like a frozen on some level. And here, by talking about the reimagination of our blessed life, I really want us to go beyond that plateau some of us have. Like, it can happen any day for us. Sometimes I feel like in our relationship we go through that every day, many times, and it's a matter of how much you are able to, how much you are trying to resolve that. Sometimes it happens like a small thing happens sometime in our life, and life is so delicate. Life means, especially husband and wife relationship, is so delicate, and even if a tiny bit of thing come to our relationship, it's a big problem. Like if one of my somehow I have to take out that. Otherwise that relationship, that I cannot work properly. I feel like a husband and wife relationship is like that. Sometimes a tiny thing like an eyelash go into that relationship. Some of us try to, anyway, that's only a small thing. It's okay, just forget about that. Then we should go forward. If we think so much about that, we cannot go forward. Sometimes we go forward, then again, after something, another one, and after something, another one. And we usually talk about forget and forgive and forget. But sometimes we forget about this first part of that, forgive. Many times these small things happen in our life. We forget without forgiving. We try to forget without forgiving. But without forgiving, that forget thing cannot work. It will always be there. It will always bother us. Whenever we see our spouse, that thing, oh, she did that with me many years before, and she's still doing that. And that kind of thing. And same thing with the husband saying, oh, he did that even right after my blessing. Now still he's doing that. We feel that way. But if we really try to overcome that, we are here to really, there is a huge historical difficulty between the whole masculinity and femininity. Only after we resolve that, God can totally be happy. We can be happy. And that's why always when we have a difficulty, we have to really resolve that. Then only we can really have a wonderful life in our families. Otherwise, we try to forget everything, but never able to forget. We really, in order to forgive, we need to reflect onto ourselves. Reflect into what is my portion. Not to think about what other side is doing. And when we do that, we can really forgive. And I want all of us to really think about today, when we are finishing our Holy Ground Revival Tour, and when we are encouraged by Dr. Barham, by two parents, and by our Heavenly Parent, to reimagine a new blessed life, I want to encourage all of us to really reimagine a new life, new family life. It is not only between husband and wife. In every relationship, it is there. And actually, the husband and wife relationship is a relationship we are reaching after several years of our experience as siblings, between friends, between many other relationships. And there also, same thing. We have to learn Bible tour, I want to encourage all of us to go towards a higher realm of blessed life in our life. It may be, many of us may be having wonderful, blessed life between husband and wife. And many of us may be having not at all any problem between children and their life. But even if so, please help other people to get into that point. And if you are by yourself, if I'm struggling, or if focus on that, then we can really have a revived and reimagined life in our community, so that we won't be able to lose that blessedness which Judaism was trying to create for thousands of years back, which Christianity was trying to, Jesus was trying to establish thousands of years. And here, our true parents also trying to establish that. We logically understand that, and there is no other people understand that better than us. And so, I want to encourage each and every one of us to really do that in a practical sense, so that we can really pass that on to our next generation, or even people coming to our movement right now. It is like a relay running we do. How many of you have done relay running? Do you know what is relay running? Yeah, I was in my school athletic team before, when I was a child, when I was in school. And relay running, you have to, the most tricky part is that even if the person is really fast or really great in athletics and with good features, the trick is to how you pass your baton to the next person. There is a person waiting for you, and a person like running with that baton, then you are trying to pass that baton to the next person. The trick and the success is, without dropping, how you can pass that baton to the next person. And here the thing is that sometimes people have, or everyone drop that baton, then one person have to, anyway, the person who are waiting there to stop, then run. When we are passing that baton, other person is supposed to really start running even before the previous person arrived. Then while they are running really fast, they are passing that. And for me, for us, I feel like that running that baton, that passing that baton means, for us, the baton is the standards we have. The life we have. Sometimes when we are doing that, if the other person is too fast, or the other person don't want to receive that, we can't do that. And if other person don't understand the heart of the person who was running before, we can't pass that. So, we really need to understand each other. When a person coming to our community as a new person, we need to tell them, we need to convey to them that why our community is here. What is the reason why our true parents started this community? What was the reason why God started this community? Then, that is the principles they have to understand. Then only they will be able to receive that baton. Otherwise, they will see, okay, you have a whole bunch of strong and strict lifestyle and everything. Why do I have to have that in my life? That's why we have to tell, okay, this is why we are doing that. This is why our Heavenly Parent needs us to do that. And in order for us to do that, we have to inspire that next person who is there to receive. How do we inspire? We have to really show that in our life. In our life, we have to show this works. This morals and this set of rules and regulations and this standard, it is workable in our life. It worked. Then other side will be able to receive. That's why I really want to encourage you to really focus on that and pass the baton to the next person, and so that we can acknowledge your spirit of coming here. It's actually, God is really happy when we come here together and singing songs to God and singing songs to each other. And that's where that's a starting point where